Continuing themes of corrupt power and conspiracy throughout Muse's work were more than present on the album, and especially so on the track United States of Eurasia, which tells of an Orwellian future where all the countries have merged into one entity.
When I first heard United States of Eurasia, obviously, you know, the title had been mooted before, and there's the obvious 1984 George Orwell kind of reference there. You knew that this was a band saying, right, we know that the doubters think we're obsessed with these ideas, but we're going to take them as far as we can possibly go with them. And I love it. It did make me laugh the first time I heard it, because I thought it's so nakedly influenced by certain things, especially Queen, obviously. You know, it's a three-part song, and there's two three-part songs that are, you know, stick in any pop fan's mind, which are Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody and Radiohead's Paranoid on Android, with which this shares, you know, some kind of idea. Freddie Mercury, you know, singing, you know, with his ridiculous hair, and I can imagine your video, you're all against a black, you know, background. And I said, did this come to you? You know, did this strike you as well? And he said, of course it struck me, you know, as soon as we wrote that bit. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we multi-tracked this vocal? And he said every time the band played that back, they just burst out into laughter.
Thinking of any of their songs as Queen tracks, because I think Queen are kind of the side of bombast that I think they should steer quite well clear of. When it becomes just too theatrical and too flamboyant and just a bit crass, I think. But still, I think a great pop tune at the heart of it.
Sounds really good.
Mm. Yeah, it's come different to what I expected it to a little bit. It's much more,
Really?
it's much more interesting than you know, than what it first appeared. You know?
It's got
No, when I say first appear, you hear the opening line, you think, oh, here we go. Do you know what I mean? You think, oh, that's a boring ballad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just goes completely away from there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like the front's almost like a deception of what actually takes place.
Well, it's been interesting the movement on in the themes that Matt's writing about, because on Absolution he started writing about the sort of the control that we're under and the paranoia and the conspiracy theories, but he wasn't really sure, you know, what to rail against. He kind of felt a bit lost in it because it was a kind of immediate reaction to the Iraq War and 9/11, which the record was kind of underway when this was happening. So he was kind of trying to fathom out what was going on. And then on Black Holes, he kind of come to a few conclusions, and he was almost sort of bits of it that sounded revolutionary, and he was finding a voice as far as, you know, encouraging people to, you know, tear the government down and start something new. And this record is even more in that vein, I think. I mean, this is really sort of, you know, railing against thought police, and you know, it seems like he's really trying to make a change and trying to get to people on this record. I mean, you could say that because it's the third record with those sort of themes on it, that maybe he's sort of, you know, changed the record a bit. You know, we know that you sort of you think that we're under control and we should be worried about it. But I don't know. I think it's an overtly political record, and possibly now he's more sort of confident in what he's saying about these things. It's one with a greater impact, and particularly now that they've got such a big fan base in America, it could, you know, they're in a position where they could really change things, and they could really change the way people think about things.
With the success they have achieved in America, Muse's reach finally spans the globe, and the release of The Resistance has demonstrated their desire to constantly push boundaries and explore more ways in which to make their music, something that has made them stand out from other acts.
They've got their own little genre, really, haven't they? And I think people will, if a band comes up that sounds like Muse, they'll say, oh, they sound like Muse, because they've got, you know, a singer with a great voice, or a great axeman, or, you know, wonderful arrangements.
Someone told me yesterday they were #1 in 16 countries this week with the new album, and that's great. And not many other bands can do that. You know, you know, you've got your Radioheads and your U2s, obviously, and things like that. But they've never come across as gone too commercial. I don't know. They still seem almost like a you know, kind of a bit of an alternative band.
I always believed Muse could be the best band in the world, and I still believe that. I think they will go on to be one of the biggest bands ever. I think they will, you know, be remembered as one of the greats. And I believe that at the beginning, and I believe that today.
It's hard to think what Muse are going to do next. You almost wanting to go and live on Jupiter and play a gig to, 30 trillion people or something like that. That's the only way they could ever reach the summit of their ambitions, I think. But I think, talking in more practical terms, they will look at the orchestral side of their music a bit more. They will try and look, as they always have, around the world for different musical influences and bring them into their music.
They're still completely unique. I mean, they show that if you're doing something completely different, if you take, as they did, hard rock music and classical music and make them work together, then you're going to be world beaters. I think it's utterly inspirational and easily the best rock band in the world today.
The Resistance marks Muse's 5th album in 10 years, and in that time they have progressed from being an unknown local act to being one of the biggest bands in the world with a global fan base and universal ambition. Whether they are singing about dystopian futures, alien invasions, deep burning passions or butterflies and hurricanes, the three friends will continue to shower the planet with their unique brand of exciting, cerebral and provoking music.